welcome to a very special edition of the Irish Rally podcast. Now, very recently, it marked 25 years since Frank Meagher and Pat Moloughney won the Irish Tarmac Championship. I'm delighted to welcome Pat on the podcast here. Hard to believe it's 25 years, first of all, Pat. Hope you're keeping well in these kind of unprecedented times. But yeah, I think it was your own Conor that shared a few images there recently, and obviously it had been on the brain down to this year that it was 25 years, but God, it's hard to imagine.
Yeah, absolutely, and they all pass, so quick. They most definitely are unprecedented times. It's a pity to see, I suppose, rallying off the calendar for the last while, all right, but hopefully come back down shortly. And Conor, my young fella, who is 25, and who was just born before in the year before the fantastic year that we had. He keeps good tabs on things, all right, and is a big fan of Frank and everything else that went before it. So it's very nice to see him posting those memorable pictures of the day, and he got a very good response to it.
He did indeed, yeah. And look, it prompted me to get in touch with you because I was like, right, we got to make this happen. Because it was so special, and Frank meant so much to so many people as well. Talk to me kind of about how you got to know Frank initially.
Shouldn't say for Frank. Go back. My initial encounter with Frank was when I was about 17. I used to be doing a bit of contracting with my father's tractor, and I needed a tire for a trailer, and I made my way over to Frank's father's garage, who used to deal in tractors and agricultural tires and tires of all sorts at the time. And ran into the bowl Frank, who I suppose charged me double price for the tire, and that was really went into that was unnoticed because in the corner of the shed was a put together Mark II Escort, where the conversation went, and we struck up a relationship. I suppose at that encounter, and I was born, I suppose, a petrol head and just a car nut in general, and one thing led to another. I'd obviously ran into another of my equal in the car nut division, not in the capability to drive, I can assure you. And from there it morphed. A short while after that, after I left school and moved on to work a bit, I finished up working with an oil distributor who used to distribute Duckman's oil, and I'd say one of my first port of calls for a bit of business was over to Meagher's garage, and we just continued from there, and ultimately I finished up many years, a number of years later, marrying sisters, and we remained very, very, very close friends right up until his untimely demise. So with a long and excellent relationship and friendship for many years.
Yeah, so it's mad that you went back even before you married two sisters, you kind of knew each other, and then,
Yeah, and of course it had to be at a rally where we met each other, so, yeah, after a Carrick-and-Shore Forestry rally, yeah, so...
and the Duckham's brand as well, which was obviously synonymous for so many years, that's obviously where that explanation comes from.
Well, that goes back a long, long time. That's... I suppose Frank was like every rally driver of the time, and I suppose in the present time, and anybody who has a car always rooting for a bit of sport in whatever guise it comes in, and it started out if I tried to go to my bosses and saying, this year, can we give this man a drum or two of oil? And he'd put a couple of stickers on this car that's going into the stone throwers or whatever. And, it's from there that it moved on many years later. Martin Davis, who was the boss of Duckins Oil many years later. Again, was a good and committed petrol head, and we just continued the relationship. I parted company with them. I went off doing my own thing a few years after that, but kept in contact with the people that were in Duckins, all right. And they supported Frank pretty much throughout his career. Yeah, and were there and very visible in that car in '95.
Yeah, definitely big time. And going back then, I know. Was Ronnie the first person to actually swim with Frank or something, and then it didn't end too well, I don't think, on the first encounter.
So, yeah. There were many of those early ones that didn't finish too well, all right, and there's not great records of them, all right. But I think Ronnie was his first co-driver of very, very early on, yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading something about that, all right, yeah, and I was thinking, Jenny, but look, things moved on, and Jesus, like, he was such a giant killer in that Mark II Escort, and, you know, so often he embarrassed the guys with works machinery, and guys he'd no right to be competing with, like, you know, in that little Mark II, and it just, I suppose, was a real measure of it, like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but I suppose that was the struggle, you know, at all times. I mean, you know, Frank never lost sight of his goal, and that was to be at the top of the game eventually. But I mean, you always have to marry, you know, the skill set and the talent, all right, you know, with a good and up-to-date machinery. It's just one of the things of motorsport that you have to have both. And that was always the struggle, because there's always a struggle for budgets. The next thing you got to a level, like, I mean, when he got to the X-Ritchie Healy machine, all right, 2223 IM, that one that became a giant killer of a car for a couple of years as well in his hands. Like, the game had moved on again onto the turbo scene was after kicking in when he got his hands on that car. The M3s had come on the scene and so forth, all right. So every time it got to a stage of the machinery, it had moved on, again, machinery-wise, all right. And that was, I suppose, the struggle for, you know, 10 or 12 years, up to 95, when I suppose at that time, even though it may have been just a small stage back from the cutting edge machinery that was available then, that car was pretty much almost right up there. All right, WRC cars were coming on the scene, but I suppose the gap was narrowing somewhat in relation to the machinery that he eventually got his hands on in 95.
Yeah, and look, that's the season we are going to talk in great detail about with you alongside him. But I suppose just to kind of lead up into that as well, we do have a little bit to go through in the trials and tribulations that led to that successful year. And I mean, there was many ups and downs, and you know, you've touched on the finances and stuff like that, and that was obviously a major factor. And I suppose any spare few bob that was going was kind of pumped into it, but it seemed that it was never at the expense or detriment to Frank's family, first of all, and most importantly as well, because some guys would probably just go off on a solo run, and you'd hear these cases where you've houses remortgaged for the sake of a car and things. It seemed like Frank never made that an issue. Family first all the time, despite the talent he had.
but you see, the funny thing about it is that the whole rally scene with Frank and everybody associated with it were almost family anyway. All right, yeah. It was fantastic. I mean, the people that worked with him in his garage, all right, everybody was a volunteer. All right, you know, the guys that were even working on the cars at weekends on the rally were working within the garage during the week. All right, at weekends it was voluntary. All right. Like his Tom Gahan Frank's brother-in-law, as you know, which is now today Tongahan Motorsport, all right, who has an absolutely fantastic a support business in rallying. As I said, it's his brother-in-law, all right. I was his brother-in-law. Ronnie, his wife, was just so deep into rallying. His mother and father, his brothers, everybody associated with it. So it was almost a family affair on the support side. So family were always around it, all right. But nobody was left without it. There was never a situation where people went hungry because of rallying, despite the fact that anybody, as you know, who's in it, it is an addictive pastime. It is an addictive sport, and the sacrifices were, on weekends, on rallies, it was 6 to a room, no problem whatsoever. All right. And it was great fun. It was absolutely fantastic fun. God, we had great years. We had, where people just, everybody put their shoulder to the wheel. Everyone was with the cause of enjoyment, and always in the pursuit of being on that top step of the podium,
Yeah, he had a right tussle. We mentioned those giant killing things before we go on a little bit further, but he had a right tussle with Mark Lovell at one stage. I think it was in 1990 in a proper works machine, and it was a gasket or something went, wasn't it?
Yeah, a gasket went eventually. Yeah. I mean, it was something else. Like, I mean, that was, but the car that Frank had was the ex Richie Healy Mark II. All right, and it was fantastic. That was an X-Works car. It was superb. But of course, the turbo scene had come on at the time. Mark Lovell was a works driver in Galway. Frank knew that patch like the back of his hand. All right, and it was a major embarrassment, I suppose, for Ford to have a works driver or works team, all right, and having their noses wiped by a car at the time. The Healy car would have been 8-9 years old at the time, So, but sure, it was in the right hands.
It was.
Yeah. Unfortunately, head gasket let go, and I suppose history, for all the wrong reasons for Ford, may have been made. But Lovell went on to win it anyway, unfortunately.
With those kind of encounters in that in particular, would they have raised eyebrows, and would people from across the pond have been considering, geez, this guy has a bit about him? Like, was there ever a conversation about that? Because obviously the talent was there, and you look at the caliber of drivers we have now. We have our Craig Breens, we have our Colin Devines. But people talk about Frank as possibly the greatest we ever had, and unfortunately had the drawbacks there that kind of prevented him in pushing on. And we spoke about the money. I don't want to keep harping on about it, but like, it seemed that he had that talent to burst onto that world scene, that he had that little bit about him.
Oh, absolutely. And it wouldn't have wanted from a commitment from Frank's a part, and wouldn't have wanted from a professionalism. All right, he would have been the first to admit himself, all right, he should be in the gym a little bit more, and so on and so forth. I mean, it looks like you look at modern drivers, all right, and today's drivers, like, who their workout regime is every bit as much as the driving. But I'm not so sure if it was the Irish market not being big enough. Probably the only possibility at that time would have been with Ford. And it just never happened for a multiple of reasons, all right? Like, the Irish economy coming up to, the early 90s wouldn't have been in the greatest of shape. because you're in Celtic Tiger time and so forth, all right. It just wasn't there. I'm not so sure what could have been done to make it any different, but it was tried on many occasions, all right, but it just wasn't to be.
Just never happened, because Billy Coleman obviously competed in Corsica with the Rotmans team and at different stages too. He got a few drives, like.
Absolutely, but he's probably up to Craig today. I suppose Billy is probably the last semi-works a driver that we would have had. It's a very difficult area to break into. All right, very, very difficult. I'm not so sure what would have done it back then.
Yeah, just a complex thing, and we all know there's a lot of mitigating factors in trying to make those sort of things happen too. But we'll bring it back closer to home then. So one of the big breakthroughs was obviously the circuit in '92, alongside Michael Maher. I mean, that was just a real flagship moment, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was that was absolutely fantastic. Again, that was a super car. In his time, now it had that was Stephen Finley's car, and it was again X-Works machine. By the time it came into Frank's hands, all right, again, the sport, technical wise, all right, and machinery wise, had moved on considerably, because the 4-wheel drives were coming into vogue, all right. But the '92 circuit was just something to behold. It was fantastic. Like, I mean, that year they had a stage, the Sleeve Them On stage, which is just up at the back of Frank's home place, all right. And the time that he set on it, I just don't have it to hand at the moment, all right. But I think it was Kenny McKinstry that he waited by something like 40 or 50 seconds on that stage alone. Yeah, it was a unbelievable achievement. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, like, moving on then, there was a couple of setbacks with major accidents in '93 and '94. I think Garrett O'Callaghan might have been signing for both of them. And it wasn't until '94 that you kind of stepped in yourself. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, like I was doing quite a bit of rallying and with other drivers at the time. All right, I mean, I'd been doing notes with Frank for years, up to and at this stage. As a matter of fact, the 3-door Cosworth. We got out from Finley. We did rallied a week or two after that. I think it was a single stage below Carrick-on-Suir, and I did it with Frank. So we had done a few events on and off. We done when the '93 car came in, which was the ex-Brian Bell 4-wheel drive Sapphire. We did a Carrick-on-Suir Forestry the week after that came in, because that car was pretty much a forestry spec car, and it was maybe even a bit heavy for a Irish Tarmac rallying, but it was very suitable for the Carrick-on-Suir forestry stages. And unfortunately, that was a car that was totaled in Cork then in that year, in '93. Yeah, that was a very misfortunate accident, but I suppose just one of those things.
He was very lucky to kind of come away. The two guys were very lucky. I think that was a big shunt, wasn't it, in particular, that one?
It was a massive shunt. The car was totaled in that, and that, I suppose, springboarded into '94, which it was the birth of the S-Work Cosworth. And, a lot of parts were salvaged from the '93 Sapphire, all right, to start that car, all right, and that was being built. I mean, it was very, very fortunate at the time that Tom Gahan was who had been with Smith Auto Developments up to that time, all right, was then making inroads with M Sport, with Malcolm Wilson's outfit at that time, and was able to bring back and apply the knowledge of putting that Escort together, and that was the birth of the 95 car that won. But as you know, unfortunately, that only lasted a few rallies afterwards built, and had another nasty shunt in Killarney in '94. Which was very misfortunate because it was a major setback after achieving the goal of trying to get up to the machinery of the time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But 94 was I did 4 rallies with Frank in 94.
And you were pulling, you were saying you're pulling, the parts were pulled out the Saffer just to try and have, get this show going, and it was a fabulous piece of machinery. Interesting reg plate on it. Was it 90 TS, was it?
Oh, yeah. Well,
a couple of them, I think, was there?
Well, it morphed into 90 TS 2723, all right, which was the famous number of that car. But if memory serves me right, it was something strange in Galway when it made its debut in Galway. It had something like a NT-F2-46 or something of that nature.
Yeah, but, it's funny. I don't remember too many of them going around 1990. Like
it had FIA logbook. All right, and it went through scrutiny.
Yeah.
It was a well-built car. And had all the required parts.
Oh, very good.
But it was a good car. I mean, it went out there in... so it made its debut in Galway in '94, and it had its usual teething problems and what you would with a new piece of machinery. And I think they finished 7th or 8th or somewhere in that rally. And Gareth was with him for that one in Galway. I did the Circuit of Ireland in it, and we finished 2nd. Which was a pretty good result with the car out on its second outing. Now that Circuit of Ireland was it was the first one where they weren't noticed. We were running on pre-prepared Patterson notes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose on that basis, your car wouldn't be running on a 10/10, all right. So could have saved it mechanically. Be a little bit more sympathetic with it. But that was a very good result for the second time out. So
was that a big tussle with Finlay actually in that one?
No, well, there was a tussle with Finlay, all right, but the real tussle with Finlay was the following year, was 95.
All right, yeah.
No, good God, the 95 one was unbelievable. After 4.5 hours of rallying, 1 second divided us.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. It was Jesus. It was that probably brought the living best out of Finlay. I know you guys were absolutely flying it, but Finlay was absolutely, he was like a man possessed as well, wasn't he?
Oh, that was unbelievable. 95 circuit was just out of this world. Like, and I suppose it was one of the last of I call it the old circuits, all right. It had gone down from 6 hours now to 4.5 hours. But we knew going up, crossing the border, all right, coming back. Finlay was coming back onto home ground. Fisher had about 30 or 40 seconds on us. But Finley was coming hammer and tongs, all right, and like, going into the last stage, I'll never forget it. Going up there, and it was up to Finley and Phil Mills, and it was a shake hands, helmets on, strap up, all right, both going for it. And, Frank was in absolutely super form, after coming off winning Galway. Neither of us were going to catch Fisher, obviously, at that stage, but it was a battle royal, absolutely, and 1 second to divide after 4.5 hours of stage times. It's it's something to think about, all right.
It's mad stuff. And look, I kind of jumped 2 rounds into 95, and you touched on Galway, but can you just talk to me about the lead up to 95, just a couple of months in advance of that? Like, was there a big conscious effort to say, right, lads, we are going for it this year? And did you put absolutely everything on the line in terms of not just on the stages, but off the stages as well?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, the lead up to that, just to bring you back just a bit more, is that after that circuit we went into Killarney, and again, massive accident. That car was a absolutely total. You're talking about registration numbers and all the rest. I mean, that was a new shell effort, all right, and. There was 6 weeks between the accident in Killarney and getting up to Donegal, and you're looking here at a bucket of parts, all right. And like, I mean, the effort, you're talking about family and friends and people in teams, like a new shell was sourced. There was a home-built car in Frank's garage, all right, with his brother Tom Gahan. The work that they put into getting that car back from a bare shell to be on the ramp in Donegal was just absolutely, at the time, tremendous work. Like, I mean, it was finished work, 6 o'clock in the evening, over to the garage. Everybody working straight through the 1 and 2 a.m. every night, back, a couple of hours keep, work, back into the car again. It was absolutely fantastic. And, it probably wasn't the best sorted car going for the rest of the I suppose, 94 season, all right? But it had the makings of when it would be sorted to be right up there, all right. And I suppose the remainder of 94 then was to that season. The year was gone. Went up to Donegal, and just to think, we finished. I'd say we finished back again. I think 6th or 7th. All right, but I did Donegal with Frank after that, and coming off the back of 2 major accidents in 5 rallies, which resulted in 2 full rebuilds. That was kind of the turning point, I think, where I said, right, we'll use the rest of this year, get this car sorted out, all right, and have a mighty crack at 95, and try and get the car up to as close as possible the current spec for 95.
Yeah, the confidence is something obviously that would have been at the forefront at this point, because he was trying to get that back after those 2 big shunts, like, and maybe the chances weren't taken that he would have took before, but then all of a sudden heading into 95, that's after coming back to him.
Yeah, well, you see, like, I suppose there's I don't know whether I had self-appointed myself or Frank had appointed me or whatever the thing was, but we were very, very close and very and trusted each other enormously, both in cars, for the limited amount of cars that we'd done. But we'd done a lot of recce's. We had done international rallies together at that time. And it was from my perspective, it was something that confidence, had to be built back up. And there's no point anybody who drives a car in rallying on the limit, they just have to have total confidence in what they're doing in their car, with the people who are around them, who are preparing the car, the person who's in the car with them. All right, and it was, I suppose, a process to try and build and put all those pieces together in preparation for and get some results, get used to that car, all right, and have a mighty crack at 95.
Yeah, and did you feel, obviously, that it was paramount then that you were the man to be there with him, knowing that you had that trust and that relationship, that, and when I doubled it up by asking, did he know in his own heart of hearts then as well that this is what needed to happen, because he trusted you so much, the feeling was mutual, and he made, you made him feel probably a bit more at ease and obviously on it as well.
Yeah, well, Kevin, it's probably one of those things that just clicked. Like we went from Donegal, and just thinking to be, did we do Ulster in '94? I think we did Ulster. We did no, we skipped Ulster. We went to the Isle of Man, all right, which, as you and everybody knows, like the Manx is just so fast. It's it's unbelievable. We didn't get a great result out of it, but we finished it, and I suppose we built up that confidence on the fast lanes of on the Manx. It's either going to work or it's not, and it was obvious to both of us that it was going to work, that we were going to be committed to it. So let's try and put a program together. Let's try and get the car together. Let's get as much sponsorship and support. Let's get as much support from a Ford and M Sport and everything technically and mechanically that Tom Gahan was bringing to the team. Like it just, I suppose, things clicked,
Yeah, and all those little variables came together: the sponsorship, the partnership with the two of you, and obviously the pace came back, and these were all big factors, no doubt, in '95.
Yeah, absolutely. And he got the car well sorted. We did quite a bit of testing in Newcastle. Like getting this set up. One thing is, with the rally cars, having the machinery and having the power and having the tires and all the rest of it. But if you don't have your setup right, you're pretty much at nothing. And even as part of that process, Malcolm Wilson even put in a test in Newcastle with that car, all right. And I remember sitting in with him, going up and down that test stage, all right. And it was just something to behold at the time. And he had and was able to benefit from all of those inputs, all right. That set up the car that was still, I'm repeating myself a bit, still a bit maybe technically behind what was available out there, but the time had come now to be being the tradesman, blaming your tools, all right, had finished. This was it. 95 was coming, all right. Had the machinery, had the setup, all right, and to be able to go for it. And to be able to display the skills and the talent, was something to behold. And it worked out absolutely fantastically.
Yeah, you followed through on it. The confidence came. You mentioned the win in Galway. The almighty battle in the circuit, and then winning in Killarney. And from Frank's point of view, 4 international victories in 1 year. It was the first time it was done since Billy Coleman. You were with him for 3 of those, I think, and we'll come to the Manx in a moment's time, and the reason that you weren't with him for the Manx. But Killarney was a big one. It's always a nice one to win.
Oh yeah, Killarney was fantastic. I mean, we know Fisher hadn't entered in that because it was 5. It was a 5 out of 7 results was your championship. So your 5 best. But going to Killarney, there was plenty of competition. Like, I mean, it was Lee McCallaghan had a absolutely superb Toyota GT, Celica GT under him, and Pater Hurston was a mighty quick man in the lakes, and it was fantastic to come out of there with a win. For Frank to win, he'd done Killarney so many times, and to win it was he was just putting the season together very, very nicely. Yeah.
Third in Donegal.
Third in Donegal. I suppose it could have been. It's probably as good as what could have been wished for. All right. I don't think there's any shame to be finishing third behind Fisher and Cullen in Donegal. With a very good run there, still leading the championship. Going into Ulster after that, because Donegal is a very, very good run. And everything was looking nice and rosy.
And Ulster got a bit hairy.
Then Ulster, it's just one of those things. Everybody has encountered it. To put in a good stage, everything has to happen pretty perfectly, and we just had bad tires in bad weather on the wrong, all the wrong things at the wrong time, and it was just a simple slide off over a very, very gradual ditch. There wasn't a whole pile of damage done, but the damage was done, I suppose, in that it was a non-finish and a result that we didn't want with the program that we had set out, because it was now after throwing a big spanner into the works for our planned season, right? And that plan was pretty much not to go to the island if at all possible. But now it pretty much was a case of having to, because Bertie was after getting a full bag of pints out of Ulster. He had his win in the circuit, and we had a Galway in the Lakes.
Right, so I think talk me through this Manx story now, because obviously I know you weren't winning for this, but a lot of things had to happen in order to even be there, I believe.
Yeah, it's because the Manx wasn't on the cards. I had it wasn't in my program at all. I had work commitments, family commitments, all sorts of things. Frank had as well. Is that where we go? He said, I suppose at the last minute, he just had to go. Had to do it. Michael Maher, who is very, very, very capable a navigator, and who had done numerous rallies with Frank in the past, was seconded in for the rally, and a first stage into it, he clips a curb gets a puncture and finishes the stage. I think something crazy like 40 or 50 seconds behind the pack on the first stage.
And reeled it all back then to win it.
And reeled it all back, all right, in the most spectacular fashion. To register a most historic win,
yeah,
over Gunda Heavens,
yeah. All the 4-2 guys were out, and something happened Bertie near the end as well, didn't it? Or was it?
Yeah. Bertie, I think it was a gearbox going through. He got a packet of revs and a no go forward somewhere,
Yeah, so, Jesus, that was, I think he was the first Southern Irishman to actually win the Manx.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, against all the odds, like.
Against all the odds. Despite the fact I wasn't in there with him, I did a puddle notes for him, and I finished up getting there, I think, about half an hour before the start of the first stage. And I was waiting for him at the end of the first one, all right, and to come off, and the left wing of the car, all right, flopping around the place, all right, with a tire toward the shreds on it wasn't a pretty sight, and but he pulled it all back, like, I mean, it was absolutely monumental.
I wasn't even supposed to be there, like.
And I wasn't supposed to be there, and to be there on the finish line, all right, popping it in Douglas was absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
So to cap it all off, then you go to Cork and win that. You were back alongside him for it, and that was the championship then.
So back from there, effectively he had because of Fisher's non-finish in the Manx. All right, Frank had the Drivers' Championship, but because I didn't have any points from the Manx, I needed a bag of them out of Cork for the Navigators Championship, all right, and it wasn't the program to do it. Frank's fans, sponsors, everybody were just absolutely over the moon, all right, and to have him going down to Cork, to I don't know, have a victory lap, all right, because he had the championship in the bag, all right. So we went down to Cork, and Julie finished on the top of the podium for it, which is absolutely fantastic. Ahead of McHale and McKinstry, I think, It
was a fairly quick victory lap, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, to actually win it, I know he was going down with the intent, and I suppose, as well as finishing it off with a win for himself, he obviously wanted to do it for you as well, so I'm sure that was a conversation you may have had beforehand.
Yeah. It was like, it was the icing on the cake, which was just an absolutely fabulous year. Pretty much everything went to plan. Except for the little incident both in Ulster in the second stage, but apart from that, it was just I suppose a dream year. Frank had put on display those skills and talents that I spoke about earlier. He had beaten, formidable opposition in formidable machinery. And I think he took his rightful place in Irish rallying history that year. Yeah?
He did indeed. I'm sure that was a memorable winter.
Oh, it was also one where I had convinced him to take a sabbatical because the clash, the commitment that is required to both financial, time-wise, business-wise, family-wise, all right, to achieve that pinnacle of winning the Tarmac Championship, all right, is enormous. And I don't know, when you call it a steadying force or a negative force or whatever, all right, I was saying, Frank, if you want to keep rallying, all right, you need to have a good business base, all right. And we decided to take time out and not go and defend immediately the year after. Concentrate in the business, and Frank was quite a businessman, and had built up his business quite well, and was in it was in a good growth position at that time, and he concentrated on that there for a year or two before getting back into it again with the WRC.
That would have took a bit of convincing. I'm sure that it wasn't a straightforward conversation, because it's like a drug. When you have it, you want it again. Do you know that sort of way?
Absolutely, yeah. But if you're in it, and if it's going to not necessarily destroy your thing, all right. But I mean, you do have to have the sum of all those parts, all right, that I spoke about earlier to make it work, all right. And you can't split yourself in two. Like in 95, I think we gave, something like I think it was 28 or 29 weekends away between recce, rallying, and testing. So, and when you're trying to run and grow a small business at the time, all right, in parallel with that, it's very, very difficult. And they're just the weekends. Like, I mean, every night, rallying, you just slept at, lived rallying, but I mean, that's part and parcel of it.
Yeah, that was the joys of it. But yeah, look, it took serious discipline and selflessness as opposed to selfishness to actually take that on board and to step away. And then when he did come back, Jesus, I remember. Go on, yeah.
Sorry to repeat something, but going back then into 96, all right, with the 95 winning car, the game had moved on again.
Yeah.
You're now going into a WRC territory, okay? So there was no point in campaigning the 95 car, the 95 winning car, to try and defend that title. Mm-hmm. All right? It did have to move up to the next stage, all right? And that next stage, would have been a massive financial commitment, all right? And again, we're back to the support and the sponsorship and so forth. All right, we'd be eternally grateful to the sponsors and the support and everything that you have. But when you move then into that next level of technicality and machinery and so forth, all right, a big bill comes with it as well. Unfortunately, the guys that have been with you all along building those, we call them more analog cars, all right? You now need a factory support, technical support, to keep those things going. It's not just the outlay of buying a new car and running it for a year. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, not as simple as that. Anyone that does think it is kind of is severely wrong. But
like the first thing to go into those cars at the end of the stage, like, is a laptop, So
yeah, that's the thing, like, yeah. So, like, when the decision did come back, like, I remember Killarney in '99, I think it was, and the pace was clearly still there. Like, Jesus, you'd never think he was away at all.
Yeah, absolutely. That car was a superb X-Works WRC car. It was Dermot Gorman did a campaign with Frank in '99. I did the Lakes with him in 2000, which we didn't finish. I think it was a gearbox maintenance, but that was a fantastic car, and he came back fighting good and hard in it. That's for sure.
And then the Focus, the Car 20 was the pioneer of this.
Yeah, sure. The Focus didn't get a run at all, unfortunately, because we had Mouse interrupted its life as a competitive car, unfortunately. Like it had a couple of outings, all right, but that car had absolutely tremendous potential, and I've absolutely no doubt that we're at the infancy there of the Celtic Tiger years, all right. Frank's businesses were well positioned. He had 3 garages on the go at the time. I have absolutely no doubt that if he was spared, he would have, got that equal machinery and gone back and repeated in '95 and even greater things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Pat, can I just talk to you? Look, and it must have been just the most horrific thing ever when March 2002. I think everyone in Irish Rallying probably remembers where they were when they heard the news. We just lost Bertie, obviously, and Mark and Emma the year beforehand. So all of a sudden we have 2 of the greatest we've ever produced gone, and not even in competition.
No, absolutely. I've been up at Bertie's funeral with Frank. And that was little did we think that a short time afterwards, we would have a repeat. It's just it's very, very sad, very misfortunate. Ronnie and his lads, young family at the time. We'd been out as we normally were on the night before, out for a meal, which we normally did. It was Mother's Day. Said he was going up the woods. There were some friends and so forth coming down the following day, and going up doing a bit of practice, bit of fun, and the rest is history. Very, very, very misfortunate to have him taken from us at the time, and from his wife and young family, which were, what more can I say?
Yeah, well, the legacy lives on, and I know you said at the time you never felt as safe in a car as you did with him. You felt safer in a rally car with him than you did in a road car. Your quote is saying.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, it was. I suppose it's something, Kevin, that you have to, you have to experience to appreciate. All right, and that is, the control. Frank was one of those drivers who was a never out of control. Like the command that he had of a car was just mesmerizing, and I had the good fortune of sitting in with on test stages with both Tommy Mackinnon, who was a world champion, and with Malcolm Wilson, who was at the top of his game, or coming off it at the time. That I did a few test stages with him, and Frank was right up there, well deserved. He was he was recognised by by his peers, superb. Yeah, what more can I say? Just a unique talent. He always claimed that it would either be rallying or golf. I can assure you, I've played a couple of rounds of golf with him. He was way better off to stick with the rallying.
and some he was quite a good golfer as well, if you just look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was, but very, very few golfers make it.
Yeah. Jesus, Pat. I mean, look, just to finish up on it, so many people, would envy your position of having had the opportunity to sit in one of the greatest that we've ever produced. And look, that's something you've already touched on that is close to your heart. It's something you'll cherish forever. And isn't that just great to be able to say that you sat beside this man and won a championship with him in 1995, something that nobody will ever be able to say apart from you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was an honour then. It's an honour today. I suppose, as I said to Conor just a couple of days ago that it's times like this when you just recognise maybe how monumental that it was, the struggles. Like, I mean, it was gas. I was thinking, Frank was always a great man for, trying to have a little bit of sponsorship in every direction that he could, if there were portals like, GoFundMe and so forth available back then, he would have been overrun with funds because of the fan base that he had. And so forth. And, just thinking back for 25 years ago to achieve what was achieved on effectively a shoestring, and the commitment that was given from every quarter. Like, I mean, the people that surrounded him were just absolutely fantastic. The people that used to volunteer every weekend, his wife Ronnie and family, how his mother and father used to attend every. They were standing on every ditch, on every stage. It was fantastic. The people around him there. I mean, I'm repeating it again there. Tom Gahan has gone on to run, the most fantastic cars in the world. All right. When Craig, he was there for Craig with all of his good results. All right, getting up onto getting into the world stage, and the technical and mechanical ability and knowledge that he brought to that team, like, it's just absolutely fantastic.
Pat, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you for the last hour or so, and to go down through all these stories. I've really, really enjoyed it, and thanks for, telling us the exact ins and outs of it, how honest you've been in the past hour, and you can sense the emotion from every aspect of what we touched on. So honestly, I just have to say thanks so much for coming on the Irish Rally podcast. It's a pleasure to hear those stories.
Thanks, Kevin.